Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Future World Conversations. At Future World Alliance, this series is about bringing industry voices into the room so that we can better understand how technology, AI, and future of work are shaping in real careers. Today's session is especially relevant for students and early career professionals as AI becomes a part of everything, almost every role. The real question is how do we show that experience in a way that employers can understand? To discuss this and then walk us through that, we are excited to welcome Harish Wundavali, a senior technical architect at Strategic Education. Harish brings deep experience in enterprise architecture, cloud native systems, and AI adoption and production ready technology. Today, he will share how students can connect AI projects to practical outcomes, role specific skills, and real world expectations. With that, Harish, without further ado, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you so much for leading this session for us, and we are excited to hear from you.
Sure. Thanks, Padma, and thanks everyone. I mean, I would like to, extend my uh, gratitude to you and the group. I think Future World. Yeah. So let me take my screen. I mean, I'll right away jump into the presentation. We'll talk through few things. I mean, and then we'll take it from there. All right. I think today's topic, maybe, I mean, if it's in person or something like that, right? I mean, I would like to start asking like how many of you are using AI tools every day and things like that. But I mean, I would assume, or I would take it like, okay, every one of us is using here. I mean, whatever. I mean, be it like even to ask a simple question like, hey, I mean, how is the weather going to be for the next 1 week? Or I think it's summer season. Many of us are asking or using these AI tools to check about where to go, or maybe about gardening, or maybe, I mean, even some curiosity, or based on what you do, it could be talking about technology, whatever. So here is the truth, right? I mean, knowing how to use AI no longer makes you special. So that's the fact. I mean, I would say everyone in this room, everyone in our group or in our friend circle can open ChatGPT, can open Cloud, or even can open Gemini, Grok, whatever, right? And they can get set up and they can just get going, right? Is being able to show that you can turn that curiosity into real probable results is what that matters. So the next few minutes or so, I'm going to talk about some of the areas or frameworks, or the language or some concrete examples. How do we exactly should prepare or put together or have a goal like, okay, when you walk out of here, you know how to take what you already do with AI and tell a story about it when you are talking to a group, or when you are facing an interview, or when you are applying for a job. Right, a little bit about me. I think thanks Padma for giving that intro. But I work at Strategic Education Agency as a senior architect in IT. My role is mostly like, I mean, I work across different portfolios, different products, mostly around architecture, enterprise integrations. How do we create scalable and secure products to our end users or our business enablement? Beyond that, right? I mean, I worked across organizations like bigger organizations like Petco, Commonwealth Bank in Australia, and a couple of healthcare product development companies. So overall, I mean, I worked across India, Australia, and currently in US. Along with that, I mean, I'm also a great supporter or a great, advocate of giving it back. So I do mentor students at universities for semesters and things like that. So I just concluded one at Boston University. I do help academia with hackathons and things like that. I do also do a little bit contribution towards the research side, not much because it needs a lot of time. So I do a little contribution there as well. So the shift, right? I mean, let's start with what actually changed in the job market, because I mean, you can see the numbers on the screen, right? So those numbers are from some bigger agencies like, I mean, McKinsey, Lightcast, things like that. So the numbers clearly strike like a demand for AI fluency grew roughly 7 times between 23 and 25, which is not steady but a gradual growth, a step change in 2 years, right? We could clearly see. And second, this is the one most students miss, or not even students. Laterals or early career group. 51%, more than half of all AI job postings are now outside of IT and computer science. We are talking marketing, we are talking finance, we are talking operations, we are talking healthcare, we are talking design. I mean, because AI is not like, I mean, it's not restricted to a group or to a space. AI doesn't live in the engineering department anymore. It's everywhere. It's not just a IT product, or it's not just an IT solution. And the third, right, 78% of organizations now use AI in at least one function. So that it's not a niche skill anymore, right? I mean, it definitely needs a handful of specialists. So it's becoming part of the baseline expectation for almost any role. On the same note, right? I mean, I was part of few panels recently. I mean, one a couple of weeks back in New York City. So I mean, I could clearly see that now. I mean, organizations and enterprises have changed the lanes. So earlier, maybe between 26 or late between 25 or late 2025, so everyone was thinking or debating like how do we adapt and things like that. And now I think the next thought quickly changed the lanes. Like, I mean, everyone now accepted to the fact that okay, yes, I think we have to adopt it, but how fast we can adopt it, or what do we do, how do we identify workflows that suits that can leverage AI and bring up the speed in market. So moving on, right? I mean, learning the tools. So here is, I mean, an uncomfortable truth, I would say. Learning the tools is no longer the hard part, because the AI tools themselves are giving a lot of things. There is a lot of, content, open in the market. There are a lot of platforms, I mean, where everyone is able to access. See, look at the left side of the slide, right? Almost everyone can do these things, right? I mean, like we can watch a tutorial on whatever tool is trending this month. You can use ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Gemini, or Copilot to get answers. And you can simply add a list of resumes, and you can in a conversation introducing yourself. Okay, I know how to use ChatGPT. I know how to use Claude and all. So these used to feel like, a list of things aware, but they are not accomplishments anymore. So they don't separate you from the person sitting right next to you, or they don't separate you from a group of people applying for the same job. So now look at the right column, right? I mean, on the same slide. So very few students can do these things. So show AI solving a real messy problem. I mean, not a tutorial example, or not just like, okay, hey, I mean, I used AI just to write code, right? Prove the outcome with real numbers. Try to identify a use case. Prove the outcome with real numbers. Connect it to the value a team cares about. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, okay, hey, do I have an opportunity to do that? No need of an opportunity, right? So everyone can think of like, I mean, or identify some problems as you talk to people, or you're just a fresh college passed out. You might see a problem there. So try to identify such problems, and try to leverage these tools and see like, okay, hey, I mean, using these tools, can I do something? No need to be a full production proof or something, but at least, I mean, if you could leverage some of these tools and try to solve a problem, that puts you outside. And how are you going to story tell that problem, and how are you going to capture the results, makes you outstanding. So the gap, right? I mean, between I have used AI and I have delivered with AI is the entire different game. That's where, I mean, you stand out. Everything else is like, I mean, going to be common across any group. So as we move on, right? I mean, what employers or what organizations are looking for? So think from an enterprise perspective, right? I mean, think of the employers. When a company or any organization is hiring, they're not looking for tool users. They are looking for problem solvers, and specifically, they are looking more focused at these four things. I mean, I'm trying to show you on the slide, right? So number one, I mean, real problems, not demo, as I was just mentioning, right? So organizations look for, your thought process, your evidences around a problem statement that you identified, and how you have applied AI to something that actually mattered. I mean, as I was mentioning earlier, right? Not simple toy projects. Like, I mean, you need to identify a situation with mistakes, or something that is really helpful for a group, or it's solving a problem for an operations workflow or a support workflow like that. And then outcomes you can measure, right? So number game, it's all about number game. Numbers that show what changed. It could be like, okay, I mean, earlier this was a so-and-so workflow was taking 2 days to finish the complete workflow end to end. Now using AI, I have built this, or I see a potential to build this, which is bringing the 2-day SLA to 4 hours, right? So a lot of time saved, and time is always equivalent to cost. So you can just talk about cost reduced, and then you can also talk about, or you can also measure any of these outcomes based on quality. I mean, what is the quality improved? So there might be some stats or there might be some assumptions made, like, okay, when it is all manual 2 SLA, the quality is around 85%. Now with these tools coming into picture, so it's reducing a lot on that part as well. So it's bringing the quality to 90%, right? I mean, all I'm trying to tell is, I mean, you should have an outcome measure to everything that you try to call out or that you try to test out. Vague numbers or vague is not going to create any impact. Number three, the next one, judgment about AI, right? So this is something, I mean, I would say underrated. Everyone thinks, I mean, takes it very light. Any organization, right? I mean, they want to know, I mean, is there a question? Okay. So most organizations wanted to understand, or they want to get into your skills, right? Deeper skills, like when to use AI, and just as importantly, when not to. So which is very important. You can't just say like, okay, hey, I mean, I can use AI everywhere, or I can use AI tools and solve everywhere. So having that skill, right? I mean, that niche skill of where and what and how to use AI is also very important. That gives the maturity signals that you are a safe bet for any organizations to have brought in and tasked to work on real world problems. And then the fourth one, right? I mean, it's all about relevance to the role. So even before you get into anything, right? So whatever story you are trying to build around your AI skills and things like that, that should be shaped, or at least could be able to relate to the job you're fighting for, not a generic like, I like AI, right? Instead of, hey, I mean, I see this role. I mean, you're in a higher education domain. I see a role of senior engineer. I have done similar use cases, or I have dealt with similar problems when I was doing my master's or when I was doing my bachelor's. I mean, we always have these problems as a student. So, I mean, I try to do some POCs, or I try to play around with AI tools, and I try to find a couple of problems and how do you put together. So, which clearly shows the relevance to the role. Moving on, a climb from tools to values, right? I mean, so I would say, like, I mean, mm, prepare a framework, or prepare, a kind of goal workflow for yourself, or I personally call it like a value ladder. How are you going to create a value ladder for yourself? I mean, when you are aiming for a job in the next 6 months or 3 months, or you are finishing your masters maybe down the line 1 year. So prepare one value ladder. Like, I mean, how can I be valuable, right? So this is, I mean, where I would say, right? I mean, step one. I mean, as we were talking about, I can use the AI. You know how to prompt. You know which app to use. You know how to get the maximum information from it. You know when and what to use, right? And step two, as you keep on using these, identify the real use cases, identify the real tasks. You now know how to uh, uh, point it to a specific thing. And then step three is outcomes, right? I mean, measure the result. You can say like, okay, what actually changed because of what you did. Step four is value. It mattered to the team. Here, I mean, I'll try to give one real world example, right? So let's take, I mean, I assume, I mean, most of us are with a technology background, and we can relate it to APIs and things like that. So let's assume, I mean, I'm a senior engineer at my work. I do a lot of, Java development or Node.js or whatever, which I use to create APIs and expose APIs for clients to access, so via browser or different applications and things like that. So part of these APIs and things like that, right? So we do a lot of repeated jobs. We do a lot of collaboration between business analysts and developers. We do write a lot of documentation, like, okay, what does an API do? What is the contract that is packaged into an API even before the development start? Okay, what are the integration points? What is the authentication related schema in place and all those things. So when it comes to authentication, or when it comes to API contracts writing and things like that, business analysts collaborate with technical team, collaborate with different integration teams, and they create that document. So myself as a senior engineer, I found a problem like, oh, okay, looks like, I mean, these APIs are ever coming. APIs keep iterating. APIs keep changing, right? And our business analysts are doing the same job. Like, I mean, they update the contract, or they create a new contract for a new API and things like that. As a senior engineer, can I work with my business analyst and try to create a collaborative tool where I could create API contracts and everything using this ChatGPT or anything, right? Yeah, I found a problem. I found a use case. Okay, let me see what I could do there. So I go to, any enterprise ChatGPT or any other tool. I try to create a custom ChatGPT model out of it, and I try to say, build that in a way that, hey, I'm looking for this. So I want to build a context, like, how our APIs are going to be developed. What would be our contracts? What would be our integration points? What would be our authentication schemas and things like that. So as I keep building that context, and I try to feed my custom model or custom agent to review or to write or to iterate API contracts, the job or the amount of time that my BA business analyst is taking to write them manually and even to collaborate with different teams is reducing a lot. So it's bringing down to a state where, right? Earlier it might be like taking 4 hours. Now it might be taking 30 minutes. Earlier it might be taking 2 or 3 hours more to collaborate between technical and business analysts to agree on something. But now I have created a model where we could collaborate. The model I created is created by some XYZ person, but that person is easily able to extend or invite others to collaborate with the model. So I have a ground now where I could collaborate with my technical and business analyst team as well. So obviously it will lead to value. So that's where, you clearly call out like, okay, hey, what's the value? Here is the most students, right? Stop at step one. They talk about tools they know, but employers are waiting or they're looking if you ever could talk about step four, the value you created or the value you can create. So as you describe any project or as you describe like, hey, I have done this, I have done that and all. So before doing that, ask yourself, right? Which approach should I take, right? And then push yourself to fit into a ladder, and then keep moving step by step until you reach outcome or value. So right now I'm in part of discussion sake. I have this 4 steps as a ladder, but everyone has their own personal choice, like based on what and how they wanted to do. So moving on, right? I would continuing to the ladder, right? I would call the power framework. So it's like problem, approach, result, and relevance. So this is one more. Uh, either value ladder suits, or you can build a framework, something like this, right? Uh, how you actually tell the story, right? So what problem you are solving. Set a foundation, set a storytelling base, right? Storytelling base, an easy one to remember, right? And then the approach. How did you apply AI into that? How did you figure a gap? Like, okay, this is the problem statement, and I clearly see the gap where AI could fit into this. So this is where you show your judgment that you have that skill enough to identify a gap and judge or make a decision that I could use AI here. And then, or the result. So what changed? In numbers, or what is it going to prove, or what is it going to add value? So that's where it clearly showcases, right? Where you prove it. And then the last one, right? The second R is relevance. Why does it matter for this role? Then you need to identify, as I was earlier also calling out with the higher education domain example and things like that, right? So whenever you are trying to showcase any concept or theory that you have worked, so try to relate it to the job you're looking for, right? So as I was creating an example here, right? So tickets were piling up. So I built an AI triage assistant that automatically routed 40% of them. Exactly the kind of reliability and operation team needs, right? That's the problem, approach, result, and relevance in a single breath. Every AI story you tell should have these 4 parts. So same project, 2 different stories, right? Then moving on. So how do you make it, more concrete? So use ChatGPT and Python to build a chatbot for a closed class project. But the same version one is a forgettable one, or I would say it's more of a common statement. Use a ChatGPT and Python to build a chatbot for a class project. There is nothing wrong with the sentence, which is the fact, which is true, but it tells the person sitting opposite to you almost nothing. It's just a general statement. You're not telling anything. No problem, no outcome, no impact. It sounds very plain, and it sounds like everyone else. You are not, putting yourself in a different situation, or separated from the group, right? So that's what I'm trying to tell. What is memorable? So when someone talk to you, right? Out of your conversation after 30 minutes or 45 minutes, there should be a few things that ring the bell, so that goes straight into their mind. so that the moment they get to see your name or see your face, oh yeah, I mean, we had a conversation actually a few weeks back. I mean, I remember what you built. I mean, using these chatbots. That's what I'm trying to call out here, right? Build a support chatbot that answers 60% of routine questions automatically, cutting average response time from 8 hours to 10 minutes, right? That's the same project, same student, but how you are portraying it, how you are trying to bring the difference, and how you make the person you are interacting with feel that difference. So these are the specific, I mean, these are the which create impacts. So that's the formula, right? Specifics plus numbers plus impact equals a story. I mean, they will remember long after you left the room. Yeah. And then the role relevance, right? So I mean, even in the previous slides, I was referring to role relevance. So every time, I mean, we talk about role relevance or something, right? The very same experience can become completely different in different stories, depending on the role you're going for. Say you build that, say you build that AI chatbot, right? If you're applying to be a developer, your story is about shipping AI feature that actually works in production. If you are going for a business analyst, the same project becomes about turning AI output into decisions and saving. For a UX designer, it's about designing trust into the AI experience, how users felt about it, and how a platform engineer. And for a platform engineer, it's about making that AI reliable and affordable scale. So basically, it's one project, four angles, four different roles. The mistakes or some of the things to be corrected from students make it telling the same generic question to every employer. The move is to take your real experience and position it for the specific role you actually want. Same truth, different emphasis. So, I mean, as you go deeper into these things, right? I mean, you need to identify what role you're applying for. So let's talk, right? I mean, uh, how can a developer versus a business analyst can project themselves? So let's get a little bit about positioning, right? If you're targeting a developer role, I mean, maybe you can start with, right? I mean, I can ship AI into a real product, and then continue there, like lead with integrating AI into working software. Show that. I mean, yeah, I mean, you understand the prompt, you understand how these agents are designed, how the agents work, how to evaluate the model's output, how to handle it when things fail, and how to manage, tokens cost and things like that. Your proof point might sound like we cut code review time by 30% with an LLM agent, right? So for a developer, right? I mean, it's more like, I mean, how do you talk about integrating these AI models into your SDLC workflow, software development lifecycle? So it could be like, I mean, it could start with a simple, I mean, GitHub Copilot being introduced or integrated with your IDE, or even you can get a little about like, okay, using CLI commands of Claude and other things, or even you can get into vibe coding. And then once you have all of that, right, how did you integrate your IDEs or your agents to your collaborative spaces like Jira, like GitHub and things like that, using MCPs and all? So what it does is, I mean, it always tries to map your SDLC flows with your ongoing CI/CD and all as soon as your code is pushed into GitLab. So your agents are going to do a quick code review and things like that. They are going to provide context-based review. They are going to provide standard-based review. They're going to provide coding best practices based review and things like that. So which eventually tells the employer or even someone you are discussing about, okay, what you are talking makes sense, and definitely yes, I see a value there. And this is all something, I mean, no need to be in a job. I mean, even if you're a fresh college passed out, I think there are so many GitHub libraries, so there are so many contribution everyone does to open source platform. Pick a project, get into your local, try to play around with these workflows, right? The SDLC workflows, bring in models to pitch in and things like that. Moving on, right? I mean, if you're targeting a business analyst role, your headline is, I mean, you can start with, hey, I turn AI into faster, sharper decisions. Lead with getting better insights. And also, I mean, you can show some, proofs like, okay, I used AI to analyze data, draft reports. And earlier I was talking about some contracts and things like that, right? So how do you use AI to write API contracts, or even if you're a VA writing tech stories, or if you're a VA writing doing some weekly reporting and things like that. I mean, bring up real time use cases. Like, I mean, how you use AI to expedite your things, to expedite your ongoing tasks, so that you're no more a bottleneck to other teams, the engineering team especially. See, if you notice, right, I mean, the pattern in both cases, a clear headline, what to lead with, what to showcase, and how to prove that you have done something. So the structure is what makes you sound focused instead of being more generic. And then as we continue, right, I mean, the four roles we discussed, we have UX designers and then the platform engineer. So if you're a UX designer, I mean, you can just start projecting like, okay, design using trust into AI experiences, right? Lead with designing for AI's uncertainty, because sometimes, right, I mean, design has to handle that gracefully. Show how you deal with user experiences, how you deal with, say, a set of personas, how each persona is you know, set to flow in the application, how you build transparency, how you can earn users' confidence, right? And then for a platform engineer, right, how are you ensuring that the complete platform is scalable? You're monitoring the platform, you're controlling some of the latency and related things. So talk about like, okay, example, right? I mean, many of the platform engineers and things like that, they deal with a lot of logs in the production systems. So how can you leverage AI systems to summarize logs or try to focus more on a precise issue or something that is happening, and how do you can think of like, okay, how can this model serve as a cost cutting tool, or or also help with best practices when it comes to caching, when it comes to auto scaling, or any intuitive ways of monitoring and observing your application like that. Again, I mean, same skeleton every time, but the headline, how you lead, how you try to prove yourself into the use case matters the most. And then the industry mindset, right? Shifting a gears a little bit, right? Talk about the real world practical mindset that will genuinely set you apart. Building an AI interface is only the beginning, right? When you're learning, getting the thing to work feels like the finish line. The model responds, the demo runs, done. But in industry, that's where the real work starts. A demo impresses for about a week, a day, or the initial call. What teams actually hire for is a system that survives real users, real load, real edge cases, right? I mean, it's not so shipping code to production, or deploying something to production is the one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, which is real important, is how are you going to support the production, which means, I mean, how your application is built or architected to support the real users, to support the real load, to support the real edge cases, to support the ever changing devices, browsers, right? Everything. So you identify those unexpected ways people use software once it is out in the world. If you can show that you think past the development, or you think past the POC you did, that's where, I mean, you're already like, okay, what happens when 1,000 people hit at once, or when someone feeds complete garbage, right? So you instantly sound more mature than the group that is trying to apply for the same job. So industry always looks for beyond theory, in short. And then what I mean, what done really means. I mean, what it real AI systems are more than a clever prompt and things like that, right? So let's define what done actually means in the real world. A real AI system is far more than a clever prompt, right? It has four qualities, and I want you to memorize these four: scalable, observable, reliable, and then being more effective. So scalable, right? I mean, as I was talking just about the real load and things like that, how scalable your system or your workflow is to handle more users, more data without failing, or observable. I think we were just talking about the platform engineer role as well, right? I mean, you can see what it's doing and why. So how are you going to monitor and observe your workflow? How are you going to get into the real world integrations, connecting points? How is it leading from the front? I mean, when it is in the production system, how do you monitor that? And then reliability, right? I mean, it's predictable. Even when the underlying model is not, the model might be a little random, right? You should not, your system should not be. So when you are adopting, or when you are bringing into models or something into your workflow, you should have that governance mindset, like, okay, how we make systems reliable, how we bring in human in the loop, and all those sort of things. So if you walk into an interview and speak this language, scalable, observable, reliable, effective, I mean, you immediately sound like, yeah, you are an engineer. You are not trying to apply for something just, I mean, like any other random person. You really know what you mean. You really know what you're applying for. But again, I mean, don't just try to call the words. Make sure you understand the words. Make sure you understand why they matter in real world scenarios, why they matter for applications that are in production. Moving on. So you're right. Production thinking is rare, even at entry level. Yeah, that's what I was just mentioning, right? You don't have to be perfect to stand out. You just have to show that you get it. You just have to, sound like, or at least present yourself like, oh yeah, I mean, we know, I mean, how real world systems work. It's not just shipping the code. There is other side of it. How we put ourselves in those shoes. Three things to remember, right? First, you don't need to have to build it all. I mean, in fact, even in the real world, no single person builds everything. We have different teams, different skill set, everything. You just need to show you understand why production quality matters. Even talking it about at a very high level puts you ahead of the pack, ahead of the group. And secondly, right, bring it to the room. Like, I mean, how does this hold up in production, right? I mean, the single question signals a level of maturity most candidates simply don't have. I mean, when you are going for a role, right, senior engineer and things like that, you can talk about like, okay, oh, how many production deployments you do? What sort of product model you have? Do you have a separate team for production support and separate team for development? How these teams work? I mean, what is your model? I mean, what sort of observability and monitoring tools you have in place, right? So that clearly gives some knowledge and insights about a candidate that, oh yeah, I mean, this particular person, this profile, as having a breadth of knowledge around systems. And again, as I mentioned earlier, right, we don't need the depth in everywhere. You just have to have the depth in the area that you're trying to focus, but the breadth across the system, how it works in the real world. So let me leave you with a number right here, 56%. That's the wage premium for workers with AI skills compared to their peers in the same roles without them. I mean, again, I mean, as I was said, as I quoted there, right, I mean, it's from a document that I read from PwC. So I'm thinking, I mean, at least, numbers matter, as I said, so it might be a motivating factor. So what a standout student story looks like, right? So how do you, I mean, put it together in short, right? I mean, as I was telling the PAR framework, right? PAR, problem, approach, result, and relevance. I mean, if you put everything together, a campus lab was drowning in repetitive email questions, real situation, real pain, immediately relatable. Approach, you can call out, I built an AI FAQ assistant with guardrails, callback to a human for human in the loop and things like that. Identify use cases. I mean, build your own, uh, you know, use cases, gaps, and how you do it. So do this next, right? I mean, as you plan, or maybe out after this session, or even more similar sessions, or you might get into other areas of how do you prepare yourself, right? So create a step, or a sequence of things that help you stand out. Like, I mean, I'm showing it here, right? I mean, earlier also I was referring, there are so many GitHub open source projects available. Try to pick one, build one real project, right? I mean, try to measure the outcomes, make it production aware. Like, I mean, try to show some results like, hey, I mean, I built a page. So the page, I mean, when two users are trying to access the page, it is taking 1 second. And the same page, when I'm trying to hit concurrently with 200 users, even then it is taking the same time. So I build a system that is uh, with all the practical scenarios in mind. It could take the load and things like that, right? And tailor the story. I mean, using the power framework again. And as I mentioned earlier also, learn the vocabulary, the industry vocabulary: scalable, observable, reliable, effective, security, governance. What do they mean, and all those sort of things. I mean, I'm not telling like, I mean, you have to, but having all these things, right? Even on a single solid project, you will be ahead of the vast majority of students competing for the same role. So this is, I mean, I don't think like this is hard or something. It is genuinely achievable. You can start with step one right after this call. So three things to take with you, right? So AI is the baseline. Tell role relevant stories. Think past the demo. As I was, I kept on stressing on this, right? I mean, what differentiates you matters. So everyone says like, I mean, today, yes, I know AI, I use AI. Even if you look at, right, I mean, organizations also. So earlier they used to open roles like, okay, application engineer, senior engineer, technical architect and things. Now everyone is like, oh, application engineer, AI, technical architect, AI. And again, I mean, even if they open senior engineer roles and all, they clearly mention that, okay, we are looking for engineers who can use or who can adapt to AI tools in their day-to-day development, work on, different model-based developments, integrate them into SDLCs and things like that. So all that you need to do is, I mean, think past the demo, think past the POCs. If you could put these three ideas in your head as you build your next project and walk into your next interview, you will be doing what most people never figure out. Yeah, I think with that, I mean, I would conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions, whatever I know and whatever I have experienced. With that, I'll stop my sharing, and I'll more make it like an open forum to discuss and ask questions.
Anyone, please feel free to raise your hands, unmute, and then ask. This was really interesting, not only just for students, I feel even for professionals. So I have few follow-up ones. If you guys want to share anything, just feel free. Yeah, Ayush, go on.
Okay, so it was a nice session. I'm audible right now? Okay.
Yep,
Yes.
you're audible.
Yes. Actually, I have been getting a role, and right now I'm also as a tag lead working around like Omdena. So I have a questions regarding the system design. While
Yep.
right now I'm working as a senior engineer role. So what is the learning approach that you have used for found most effective when it comes to system designing? Right now it is studied distributed like the system fundamentals, like the analyzing production share architecture, designing the first principles, and
So,
doing like the real and systems. Let me complete that thing. And how
yeah,
would you
right.
prioritize these tasks today, like especially when the AI is becoming the part of engineering workflow? So that's my question.
Can I get a little more about what do you mean by system design? More
Well,
context.
okay. So like right now we are building multiple things. So we need to know like there are some resources, book interviews, like we might take, like what are the requirements for the system that we need to discover it. Like in the simple words, like AI is becoming capable of generating the architecture implementation details. But right now, when it comes to shifting in the system design, it is differentiator. Like still the deep knowledge of a distribution system needed to be there, or there are new skills that needed to be important as to come as the AI first development environment.
So it all varies, Aish. I mean, it depends on what kind of system you're developing and what sort of use case or workflows that you have identified that okay, AI can be of helpful here. And again, as I said, right, mentioned, so these AI tools are not going to do everything that you expect them to. Definitely, they have loads of data, loads of knowledge, and loads of inputs that they could provide. But the human in the loop, or always I put it like it's intelligence before artificial. So whoever is designing those, like I mean, you mentioned that you're a tech lead or someone like me who is an architect and all, right? We need to have that essence of like, okay, what is that workflow we are going to leverage AI tools into, and how does it solve the problem? In your case, I mean, you're trying to call out like, okay, multiple use cases and things like that. Maybe I would suggest like put down a use case, try to identify the gap and see, I mean, how AI could help and how much it could help. And when you think about how much it could help, it's not just like, I mean, you are randomly throwing things at AI to help. How much context you are going to build around that. If you remember the use case I was mentioning about APIs, contracts, and things like that, I mean, we can create a model to create contracts, but that model is not going to work very generic, right? You need to have a definition for that model to work. You need to create MD files. You need to create context for that model, how to behave. So every ecosystem has their own dependencies. So in my organization or in your organization, the ecosystem has different layers of authentication, different layers of review process, different layers of governance. So it should fit into all those things. So it's all, I mean, I would say a use case to use case driven methodology.
Nice. Harish, I had a question from the slide. I think I made a note of it. They don't hide the tools, hide tool users, they hide the problem solvers, right? There was something like that. So if you
Mhm.
were entering two candidates, one with a polished AI portfolio and full of demos, and another with just one project that addresses all four of the things that you mentioned in that slide, so which candidate will stand out and why?
Okay, I mean, I definitely go on breadth rather than depth. The
Mm-hmm.
reason I'll tell
Okay.
you, the reason I'll tell you. So, I mean, I do very actively interview profiles even now. So, what happens is, I mean, when you are getting to the interviews and things like that, right? So, your mindset is very important. So, let's assume
Yeah.
an example, right? I mean, I'm a developer or I'm a senior engineer. I'm given a task. I want to work on that task. So, if your mindset is more into depth and you are just thinking on your task alone, all that you do is okay, I have to create a form on a web page, and once user submits all the details and click on submit, I need to make a service call and it's all done deal. But if you don't have the breadth, you cannot think of like, okay, if I submit a form, is it going to be a positive scenario always? What are the failure cases? How does the data, when user clicks on a submit, get to the source system or the data store system where it is saved? how is it being designed over there, right? Even before that, I should have a mindset like, okay, BA has given me a story. So part of that story, what is BA giving me? Is BA giving me just to create the form and submit it? Or the BA is going to help me with all the non-functional requirements as well? Or if BA missed to add them, should I ask them like, okay, hey, I mean, are there any non-functional requirements for this? Because I'm developing a form, right? So should I think of accessibility? So should I think of error cases? Or should I think of responsiveness, right? So having that real world breadth and that mindset of thinking end to end is what matters.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, and I have a question regarding the value ladder slide, the value ladder framework that you introduced. So if you were mentoring a student today, so what would you ask them to cover in next 30 days, starting from that step 1 to step 4 in that value ladder?
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask them to get around, I mean, their day to day, find a problem. So if you're a student, I mean, if you're working on any within the university internal groups, like, I mean, you're part of any hackathon group, or you're part of any, there are a lot of communities. If you could find a problem there, identify, I mean, what is that problem? Create a small web application. I think there are so many frameworks available. You can just spin up a web application in a matter of hours, right? And then see, I mean, how you could get any of the open source model plugged into it, see what you could do, and try to showcase like, hey, I mean, to your group itself, right? I mean, okay, we are organizing these hackathons, or we are organizing these community events, earlier everything manual, WhatsApp groups and things like that. Now I have built a framework. I have built a platform for us. It's all built, I mean, using AI tools. Here you go. Even, I mean, when you get submissions, right, AI is going to know your hackathon theme. It already says like, hey, okay, we got 100 submissions in the past 24 hours. Out of 100, here you go, 10 are matching our theme. Right, a human in the loop comes in the play. They try to validate things. I mean, yeah, everything is, I mean, around you, right? I mean, if you have that mindset of like, okay, yeah, I need to build a ladder. I need to stand out in a group who are applying, or a pack who are applying for a job. So you need to find a problem around you.
Right. So the frameworks that you have introduced, I feel a lot of our learners from AI Launchpad, or even our ambassadors, who many of them are just recent graduates, they have a lot of things to take away from it. What do you guys think? I see a lot of them. Jessina, you have anything to share? Amrita, you all are in my Launchpad program, so I'm just trying to get your response. The projects that you guys have built, and even the hackathon, that project that you're going to submit. So there is so much that you can take away from it, how you can present it in your portfolio, or talk about it in the interviews. Anyone want to share your opinion, thoughts?
I would like to share something. So this session kind of gave us a systematic approach, how to, transform our existing profile into AI powered, like AI. We actually feel like AI empowered after the AI Launchpad, but then how to showcase that in a systematic way, and depending upon everybody's roles are different. So today's session was like a great walkthrough to follow that process and showcase the impact of AI. And I truly believe we just stuck at like, hey, we have used tool, but then how to use the same tool, but to showcase like how we solve the problem with that tool, with the workflow. That is where we have to change the language and show the impact. So this is really great session. Thank you. This is really helpful, insightful session.
Yeah, thanks all. I mean, I think we're on time, and I need to run to my next meeting. Thanks a lot, and yeah.
Thank you so much,
Have a good
Harish.
weekend.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harish. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.